everyone. My name is Frank Sloot. I'm co-founder of Aesti. Aesti is a social enterprise. We trade in agricultural ecosystem services like carbon credits, for instance, which have been mentioned on this in this meeting before, with a special focus actually on smallholder farmers. I actually want to convince you that investing in regenerative farming should be the common practice, and that the tool that we're going to develop will create the backbone for such investments. So why invest in regenerative farming? Next slide, please. Let's keep it on slideshow mode. Okay. So in this, this slide is the result of the U.S. Soil Health Institute with 100 farmers that have transitioned to regenerative farming, and it shows that 85% of the farmers reported a net income increase. $52 per acre for corn and $45 for soybean, and this is exclusively based on increased yields and reduced inputs. However, only a few farmers embark upon the transition towards regenerative farming. So the question is why? Next slide, please. What you can see here on this slide is that one of the important reasons is shown here in this slide by the Bain company. It takes 4 years basically to get to a break-even point on profit per hectare. That is time, money, and support that farmers don't have, and that our tool hopefully will help solve. So how does our solution work? Next. First of all, our tool is focused on creating and supporting a long-term relationship between farmers and investors. Click, please. A relationship that will continue throughout the different transition phases towards regenerative farming. It will be based on the results of each of these phases instead of an upfront loan and interest payment that is currently very often the case. Secondly, the tool will create a more compelling business case to invest by incorporating all positive effects of regenerative farming. Click. Next, please. So not only on the expected yields and the reduced inputs that are currently very often used, next, but with 3 additional items: ecosystem services revenue, like carbon credits, water storage, or improved biodiversity, a land value increase, land that is not only valued on quantity but also on quality, and the avoided cost of doing nothing. What would happen if you extrapolate the continuation of conventional practices? Next slide, please. Why is this long-term relationship between the farmer and an investor important? Well, because the results of each of the transition phases are very different. Next. So at the beginning, at first, the input costs are very high: farmer training and support, soil samples, cover crop seeds, etc. And the yields will be less, and the other components of the business case will not generate a lot of positive results yet. Next. At the end of the transition, this will have changed considerably. Input is reduced, yields will have increased, ecosystem services will generate revenue, the land value will have increased, and the avoided cost of doing nothing will have reduced the investor's risk considerably. Next, please. So how does it work in practice? Next. At the beginning of each phase, a budget will be created defining the expected cost and revenues. Next. And at the end of the phase, each phase the same will be done, but now based on the actual results achieved. Next. The blockchain-based and mutually agreed outcome will define the flow of funds from either investor to farmer or vice versa. This tool is therefore used by both the farmer and the investor, and facilitates the long-term relationship and support that farmers need, and hopefully also the compelling business case that you're looking for. Next, please. Currently, the agri-industry is responsible for 24% of the global greenhouse gas emission, while we all know that the agri-industry should not even be on this map, as it's the only industry that can be net negative. With regenerative farming supported by our tool and with your help, we can remove the agri-business from the map. Next, please. And next. So, together with our partners, Specialized and Accurate, we have a wealth of experience with regenerative farming and in deploying effective and cost-efficient measurement technologies to put hard numbers against each of the business case components. We also have a potential regenerative farming use case in Turkey where the tool can be used and tested. Next. What we're looking for is a financial launcher customer to jointly develop the tool with, and 50K in financial support to develop a proof of concept by the end of 2023. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 3 keer is scheepsrecht.
Yeah.
So we have a first question from Bar, Rabobank.
Oh. Yeah, thank you, Frank. Great that your presentation finally worked. Yeah, I really liked your presentation. I think it's really spot on, the whole regenerative agriculture discussion. And I wondered if you can maybe elaborate a bit more about the whole carbon capturing part. And because as you might know, within Rabobank, we have something that's called the Rabo Carbon Bank. So I just wondered if you looked into it and if you see any.
Yeah. We have. So Aesti is, like I mentioned, Aesti is a social enterprise. We work on creating ecosystem services for smallholder farmers, actually, to make sure that they continue that their competitive position not further deteriorates as a result of ecosystem services, but that they can actually participate in this market as well. We've worked very closely with the Rabo Carbon Bank, actually, in developing the version of the protocol that we have for supporting that, and basically continuing now also in alignment with the Acorn project. So yes, very much aware of it.
Perfect, and I don't have to do an introduction to them anymore.
No, that's perfectly fine. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you for the question. Let's go to Arnoud. I didn't saw in which, how do you say it? Okay, order. Arnoud, you can go first.
I'll feel honored. I was the last probably, but thanks a lot.
Oh, sorry, everybody.
Sorry, thank you very much, Frank. Very interesting. So can you just explain a little bit? I think on Regen Ag, I think education of the farmers is also very important to keep them on track of all the practices. Can you explain that? And second question is, where's the location? Where do you want to start? And what's the stage of your pilots or something we're doing right now?
So on the training part of the farmers, that indeed is very important. That is one of the reasons why I mentioned in the presentation as well that at first the input. We've put the training course basically as part of the input course that are necessary for the farmers. So training and support on regenerative farming practices, and not just at the beginning, but basically throughout the partnership is an important element. So that is part of the business case and the tool that we aim to develop. So this is a new idea. So we haven't done anything on it other than developing the idea and looking for a launching customer basically to help develop it with. So it's not as much a, let's say, a pitch for our company. It's actually a pitch for developing a new idea and seeing if the idea works and obviously to support and regenerative farming and put that into wider practice. But not only that, I think there's an uptake both on the farmer side as well as on the investor side, because like I mentioned in the presentation, I think the business case is often looked at in a very narrow way, and I think it could be looked at in a broader way, which would make it much more interesting, and actually makes it much more interesting already if you take the risk of current investment into consideration. Does that answer your question, Arnoud?
It does. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Now I also know that Tom was actually the first one with the question. He also raised the question in the chat, and you were talking about the size of the farmer. So maybe you can unmute and ask directly.
I think the answer was given by Frank a bit earlier about which countries is focusing and the type of farmers. So it wasn't.
Yeah, but I think so. If I can add one thing, so yes, as Aesti, we're focused on smallholder farmers. But actually, I think that this tool and this way of looking at regenerative farming does not only work for smallholder farmers, but certainly also works for farmers, for instance, in Europe. So we're focused, I would say, on family farms. And I think in Europe, the same applies as it applies in the global south, I think. Also here, we see and find that many farmers really struggle to make the transition because of those first 4 years and because of the lack of support that they have, both financially as well as in terms of, let's say, education and sport in making that transition.
Thank you. And then Hans.
Hans, I can't hear you. So.
No, but now you can. Hey, so my question was also around size of farms and where you focus on. And I would actually say, although I'm not part of your company, I would actually target the easiest market, which is probably not the smallholder farmers, but in Europe or in the US. Anyway, apart from that advice, if I would invest, or actually not myself, but as a company would invest 50,000 euros, what do we get back?
It's a good question. We haven't thought about that. So
at least it's honest.
Yeah, it's honest. And to be honest, it's also, this is not meant to make money on. This is meant to support the transition towards regenerative farming. And actually, my proposal would be to make it an open source solution available for each and everyone out there. That would be my preference, to be honest. Does that answer your question? Perhaps not satisfactorily, but that's what
does answer the question. Yes, thanks.
Maybe I have a follow-up question on that. So, if you would make your solution open source, would that mean that each and everyone individually could invest in whatever farm project they prefer, and you get a global decentralized network?
Yeah, that would be the intention.
Yeah. All right. Because currently, what does the typical investor profile look like for the investor-farmer relationship that you're currently trying to enable?
When you look, so at the moment we're working quite a bit in Africa, for instance, and one of the difficult things for farmers in Africa is to get access to finance, and to get access to support. So this is a way to get that organized and to get that done. And at the moment, it's primarily financial institutions, so banks that are loaning money. Either sometimes it's let's say microfinancing that's being done. But certainly, if you want to work with cooperatives and larger groups of farmers, it's very often banks that provide this type of finance.
All right, thank you for answering.
Thanks for the question, Thies. I saw one question in the chat. Howard, can you unmute?
Yeah. I was curious.
There you are.
Regenerative agriculture is a term that was launched in the 1950s by Bob Rodale, and it seems to gain a lot of momentum now. What about organic, biodynamic, and just sustainable agriculture? Where do they fit into this battle? Because regenerative, there's a lot of questions about the claims that are made about its functionality.
Yeah. So to be honest, I specifically used the term regenerative farming, and I know there are a lot of discussions and let's say definitions out there, but the reason for using the term regenerative farming for me is very much based on the fact that it's about creating at least an equilibrium between the products that you grow and the health of the soil that you nurture, basically, and making sure that you put at least as many nutrients back into the soil as are taken out by the crops that are being grown on it. I think the importance for us and for me is trying to get scale. And by limiting things to organic or biodynamic, I think you're limiting scale and the possibilities to scale. So that's why we prefer to use the term regenerative farming and not the other ones. But certainly, of course, both organic as well as biodynamic would be included and certainly not left out. On the contrary, I would say.
And I would encourage you to think that the big industrial farmers are really the win, not the small farmers, which make up a very small percentage of the land in the United States. And this is where, if you're really talking about climate change impact, it's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.